Hello, listeners, and welcome to BiteSizeTales, the audio flash fiction podcast. We return to start our fourth book on this April Fool's Day with 3 stories that endeavor to ask the question of just what it means to be a fool. The Fool, written and read by Wayne Cole. I looked around the dark, damp dungeon hall and realized that I was a fool. What had possessed me to think I could be a fit for the town guard when I'd never even been in a fight before? Well, the ladies seemed to dig the town guard, and that was really all the thought I'd put into it. There, in the corner, gnawing on some sort of bone, was one of the furry creatures I'd been sent in here to hunt. I hadn't bothered learning the thing's name or really anything about them because that just seemed like a waste of time. My eyes strained to make out my target, but I took aim anyway. The string on my bow snapped as I took the shot. I'm not actually sure if it snapped or just came loose, since I was never taught how to string or shoot a bow. I let out a loud growl of frustration before I remembered that I should be quiet if I didn't want all the creatures in the catacombs to come running. They were not all as weak as these furry rat-like creatures. Mistakes like that are what happen when you're sent into a dangerous situation without any kind of training. Captain Henderson, head of the town guard, believes in on-the-job training and sorting through the recruits by seeing which ones survive. I do not care for his training methodology. I drew my sword and brought it down on the oblivious furry creature below me. The sword struck the ground with a loud clang that sent echoes through the stone halls. The creature, whatever it was, had moved faster than my eyes could process, giving me no chance of hitting it with a swing like that. I found myself wishing I was fighting something bigger and more scary, just so I might actually stand a chance of hitting it. To be completely honest, I wasn't even sure if I had the type of sword I should be trying to cut or stab with. I'm pretty sure flailing around wildly hitting nothing isn't the right way to use any sword, though. The captain hadn't even given me arrows for my bow. He said that there'd be plenty in the catacombs, and that I would appreciate them more if I found them on my own. He was right in that regard, as I let out a hoot when I found the quiver attached to a skeleton of a dead adventurer. It was my assumption that a bow would be the safest way to fight, since I could do so from a distance. I'm pretty sure it would have worked too if I could hit anything I aimed at. The slightest bit of instruction would have made the difference, but nope. He said learning as you go builds character. Well, I would have liked to have made an effective character of myself. I turned the corner in my mad dash to get away from the snarling little furry ball monster to find a whole group of fellow recruits. They were working together instead of being sent in alone like I had been. To make things worse, as I watched them seamlessly support each other taking down a batch of wild slimes, it was obvious they knew what they were doing. Hey guys, decide to team up down here? Frank, the third son of the town blacksmith, turned towards me. I stamped my jealousy at his muscles, twice the size of my own, deep down into a dark place inside I pretend doesn't exist. Didn't exactly decide. We were sent in as a group. Where's your team? He kept his words short as he hacked away at the last few slimes. I'm still new. Captain Henderson said that I needed to learn to fight on my own before I learned to fight with others. Frank ran an old rag over his sword, wiping away the green goo coating it. That's weird. He started us off training together from day one, right after teaching us how to string our bows and how to properly swing our swords. I'm pretty sure my jaw dropped hearing that. You were taught how to string your bows and how to swing your swords? You were taught anything at all before being sent down here? Of course. You don't think he'd just send us in here with no training at all, do you? Wait, is that what he did to you? What in the world did you do to piss him off? One of his companions leaned over and whispered in his ear. Oh, your name isn't by chance William Parks, is it? Yeah, why? Do you remember hitting on a blonde at the town festival a few weeks ago? Did I ever remember that blonde? She was like an angel come down from heaven to grace us with her beauty. At least she was before we rolled around in the hay for a while. Of course, I had to play that down a little bit, because a proper gentleman doesn't kiss and tell. Yeah, she seemed to really like me. We had a great time, if I do say so myself. What does that have to do with anything? The whole group started laughing at me. When Frank finally composed himself, he answered my question. That was Captain Henderson's youngest daughter. He's extremely protective of her. That was when I decided that perhaps the town guard wasn't the right career path for me after all. Maybe I should try to become a bard instead. At least if I was going to be a kind of fool, I could choose what kind. Well, lads and ladies, it's been a pleasure, but I think I shall take my leave. Perhaps dungeon crawling isn't really my forte, but maybe I can learn some survival tricks from that blonde. I tipped my non-existent hat and headed for the dungeon exit. I also made a note to get a hat. A big hat with a large feather. Author's note. This story was originally written a while ago, and I liked the idea of somebody being sent into a dungeon without any training. As I wrote it, the characters slowly morphed into the very first D&D character I ever played. He, of course, was a bard, and I've since done a few things with him under the moniker The Bard's Bard. I'm sure it won't be too long before he shows back up here again.
The Fool, written and read by Chris Husssey. The hero stood. It was not easy to do so. His body ached from top to bottom. There was not a place that didn't hurt. And of course, some places hurt more than others. Blood flowed in small rivers from the numerous cuts, scrapes, and punctures in his body. Yet, he stood, rising up over the slain around him, the countless bodies of his enemies around him, enemies he vanquished, lives he ended, all for his glorious cause. His mind flashed to the days before the battle, the ceremony, the accolades, the songs, feasting, attention and affection. It was all for him. Yes, those with him received their fair share, but wave after wave of adoration for him, the hero, was given. Over and over again. It was warm, it was welcoming, it was wonderful, and it made him feel worthy. And he met with his ruler, him and him alone. His ruler praised his abilities and competence. The hero knew many of the words were platitudes, but the ruler's manner with his silvered tongue still held sway in his heart. It inflated his ego and instilled him with confidence. No, it enhanced and polished the confidence he already possessed. It reminded the hero, to him and him alone, how great he was, how much his skills and presence mattered. The ruler continued with his honeyed words, the importance of this battle to their realm, the benefits and triumphs it would bring to the realm and the ruler, and the brave and noble sacrifice of the hero towards this cause, and it made him feel worthy. His mind then went to those close to him, friends and family. They further praised his coming efforts, his prowess and glory, and what his future deeds would accomplish and what they would bring for him and their future. And he felt his worth. And now here he stood, among the blood and bones. Cries of pain and death surrounded him. Beyond that mournful opera were the sounds of continued battle, his comrades dying and killing, all in the name of the hero and their realm and their ruler. He looked at his weapon, the shining of its steel now muted and caked with blood, which dripped in a steady rhythm, each drop punctuated by another cry from the wounded around him. Their cries weren't for vengeance, or for their realm, or for death to the hero. Their cries were for those close to them, their friends, wives, husbands, and lovers, mothers and fathers. Their cries were for forgiveness of all their past sins and transgressions, crying to gods they never saw and possibly never felt. Cries for mercy and to be quickly taken to the afterlife to reside with their gods. And the hero felt lucky to be among the living. And then his mind went to thoughts of his loved one, the one who he cared most about, the one who he shared his deepest secrets with, trusted the most, loved more than anyone. He remembered all the words they exchanged, where this loved one further praised his talents and abilities, prowess and skills, but at the same time kept him grounded. They pointed out his flaws, failings, and missteps, but never in a malicious way. It was always in a way that was laced with love, tenderness, and kindness, a way to build him up, help him move forward, help him succeed and overcome those shortcomings. And in return, he loved them back, loved them in a way he'd never loved anyone before. And he remembered the sadness they both felt when he knew he was headed off to this battle, to wage this terrible and violent and brutal fight, to kill and slaughter, all in the name of his ruler and realm, all for glory and honor to be placed upon himself and those around him. And the hero suddenly wasn't sure how he felt. His thoughts and his vision returned to the scene around him, his brothers and sisters in arms rallying to his side as he called to them. Weapons raised high and shouts of encouragement flew back and forth, all to raise the spirits for the next attack. As they rallied and readied, the hero couldn't help but wonder what thoughts were going through their minds. Were they thinking of the glory, the pain, their dead comrades, their loved ones? Were they, like he, beginning to wonder what was the point of this all? And what of those they were about to face? What were their thoughts, their dreams and hopes? Surely this could not be the only thing they desired. The hero wondered how much he truly knew about their enemy, and he felt confused. And then they appeared, another wave of like-minded warriors, charging over the hill, their battle cries rising in volume with each hurried step. The warriors around the hero responded with their own battle cries, and the hero found himself adding to their cacophony as they moved as one unit to meet their enemy. And as the hero charged to his death, his mind played back all the thoughts, one by one, as enemy after enemy fell before him. And then it was the hero's time, the time when he met the enemy's weapon in a fatal way, and he thought of his loved one, and where they might be, and that he was not with them. And in that moment, as his life faded away, the hero found himself experiencing his last feeling. He did not feel worthy. He did not feel filled with honor. He felt that he was not a hero, but felt only that he was a fool. Author's note. So this story, obviously, aside from being themed for April Fools, was inspired in a roundabout way by the song What a Lucky Man He Was by Emerson, Lake and Palmer, or Lucky Man, I think might be the actual title. I remember that song distinctly in my youth and found it to be very ethereal, eerie, very strange, but also with a definite lesson there. And I don't know exactly how that song came in my head when I was inspired by this, but it did nonetheless. And this is the result of that. So thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed it, and welcome to Book 3.
Finding Heidi. Written and read by Dot Moore. I've never thought of myself as a spiritualistic person. I don't judge or besmirch those that do believe in a higher power or something beyond themselves, and I hope for the same understanding in turn. That said, I'm at my wit's end here. Nothing, and I mean nothing, in my life has gone according to plan as of late. For example, my parents decided to go on a month-long tour of Europe and left me behind to watch after their dog Heidi while they were gone. Well, wouldn't you know it, Heidi ran away. Not even a week into their trip, the dog just bolted out the back door after something, and I haven't found her. No one has called about the lost dog posters I put up around town, but I'm still hoping I can get her back. Then, to make matters worse, I accidentally set their kitchen on fire trying to make a cup of noodle in the microwave. No idea how it happened. Maybe not enough water. Either way, there's some lovely scorch marks inside their microwave now, and I have to find a way to replace it before they get back. It's been a series of Murphy's Law days, and I'm hoping I can get through this stretch of bad luck before my parents come home. They send me pictures and updates regularly and look like they're having such a good time. I can't bring myself to tell them what an awful time I've had since they left. It had been a few days since I had any sort of lead about Heidi. I was starting to doubt that I'd ever find her again. I was driving past the houses on Lake Street, and out of the corner of my eye, I thought I caught a glimpse of Heidi sunbathing in a bay window. I slammed on the brakes and was promptly rear-ended by the car following too closely behind me. See? Murphy's Law. I pulled over, and before I could get out of my car, the guy that hit me peeled off around me. Great! Hit and run. Exactly what I needed to top off what I'm sure is going to be the highlight of my year. I slammed the car door behind me and leaned back against the headrest as tears slipped from the corners of my eyes down the side of my face. I startled out of my sobs as someone rapped on my driver's side window to get my attention. I looked up to see a kind, older woman with long, graying hair twisted into a mess of braids. She had a sweet sort of smile and motioned for me to roll down my window. She huffed a quiet sigh and spoke. I saw what just happened. Are you okay? Do you need me to help you get in touch with anyone? My lip quivered and the tears continued rolling from my eyes. The woman clicked her tongue and motioned for me to go in with her. I did as instructed and turned off the ignition of my car, then followed as this perfect stranger led me up her driveway. Coincidentally, the same driveway to the house that I thought I'd found Heidi. The woman turned to look over her shoulder, making sure I was following, and smiled kindly again. My name is Heidi. What's yours, dear? I laughed out loud, a cackle almost, and caught myself with such awkward behavior. I cleared my throat. I'm Allison. The woman continued smiling sweetly at me and nodded her head. It's nice to meet you, Allison. May I ask, is there something funny about my name, dear? I blushed and wrapped my arms around my midsection, hoping to hold myself together. It's kind of a long story, but suffice to say, I lost my parents' dog. Her name is also Heidi, and I could have sworn I saw her sitting in your front window, which is why that accident happened. Well, I guess it's actually not that long of a story. The woman, Heidi, cocked her head to the side and let out a huffed laugh to herself. She closed her eyes and turned her face to the sun and took in a deep breath, then exhaled slowly. I do love when the universe does silly little things like that. Don't you? I shrugged my shoulders and gave her a slanted grin. I tend to have the worst kind of luck, so I'm not sure if the universe has my best interest in mind. Her brow furrowed, and she held out her hand welcoming me to her front door and into her home. From around the corner, a familiar russet Doberman greeted me with an excited woof and hand licks. How on earth could the world be this small? There's no way, right? This kind of thing doesn't just happen to people like me. Heidi, the person, bent down to pet my parents' dog and gave her scratches behind each ear. Well, it's no wonder you found me. We're sisters in name, too, it seems. I raised an eyebrow and Heidi caught my expression. She stood to face me, looking me over briefly before hooking her arm into the crook of my elbow and leading me deeper into her home. It was a lovely space, very boho chic decor with a hint of modern flair. She brought me to one of the back bedrooms that was entirely decked out like one of those holistic shops you find tucked away in an abandoned strip mall. There was an ornately decorated desk at the corner of the room, a massage table lined against one wall, and every other surface was covered with trinkets and crystals of every kind. She sat down at the desk and gestured for me to take a seat opposite her. I sat, and dog Heidi came to rest her head in my lap. I brushed my fingertips along the top of her muzzle, and she closed her eyes with a sigh. Heidi cleared her throat and picked up a deck of cards with embellished details on the reverse side of each card. She shuffled slowly and began to organize the deck in front of her without saying a word. The designs and images on the face cards were intricately beautiful. She turned over a few more cards and eventually fanned the remainder of the deck to me and asked for me to pull a card for myself. I reached forward and plucked a card from the deck and flipped it over to reveal the image of a young man standing at the edge of a cliff, kicking up his leg towards the stars and carrying a bindle on his shoulder. Heidi smiled and whispered to me, "The Fool." She set the card gently in front of me and began to explain this reading. The Fool tells a story of fruition, while also being the blank page everyone on a new journey must start with. The Fool is full of energy and optimism because they never suspect the world to fall from under them. Much like you, Allison, the burdens of life surrounding you have not kept you from seeing the true nature of things. You do not seem jaded by the events you've experienced, and the Fool tells you to harness that energy and wipe the slate clean, dear. Tears fell from my eyes as the stranger before me brought a level of clarity and understanding I'd been needing over the past few weeks. No, I'm not a spiritual person, per se, but I do believe in hope, in whatever form it presents itself. I looked back to the woman after wiping away my tears. Thank you, Heidi. I really needed that, to see that there's still some optimism left in me. Would it be too much to ask if we could get a coffee together sometime and you could tell me more about this? As I gestured to her table. She smiled at me once more and reached to take my hands in her own. I think that would be a lovely idea, Allison. Author's note. So, as you have well been told or may have guessed or have come to understand, this chapter is brought to you by April Fools.
This chapter of Bite-Sized Tales has been brought to you under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 International License. Intro and outro music is Fantasy Motion by Alexander Nakarada, provided under a Creative Commons 4.0 license. If you enjoyed what you heard today, we would greatly appreciate reviews and recommendations to your friends. Finally, for more information about our authors, please visit BiteSizeTales.com. We look forward to reading to you next time.